All the older men are linked up with their previous life. They have wives, children, occupations, and interests. They have backgrounds which are so strong that the war cannot obliterate it. We young men of 20, however, have only our parents, and some perhaps a girl. That's not much, for at our age the influence of our parents is at its weakest, and girls have not yet got a hold of us. Besides, there was little else, some enthusiasm, a few hobbies, in our school. Beyond this, our life did not extend, and of this nothing remains. My name is Sam Dean. Reading All Quiet on the Western Front made me think about the sacrifices the young men had to make to go off to war. They had to leave families, friends, hobbies, and interests behind to go off to war. I also considered what it would be like if I were to enlist in the war, and what I would be leaving behind. I would be very sad if I was in their shoes. I would be sad having to leave my favorite things behind to go off to a brutal war. Some of those things are my mom, Kristen, my dad, Brett, my brother, Will, other family members, good friends, sports, video games, and other important things to me. I know that this would be really hard for me, so I can imagine it was for them too. I sometimes think of myself as similar to Paul. First of all, it would be difficult to leave the important things in my life behind, but I also think returning home would be very hard, after being at war and seeing friends die. It just wouldn't be natural to return to normal life after experiencing a treacherous war. All Quiet on the Western Front made me think a lot about how hard it was for the soldiers to go through the war, and how it made extra important to stay close to their friends. I can imagine that if I had to be in that situation, it would be extremely important for me to keep friends close to me, and how I'd value them much more if I had to go through a war together. This book broadened my view on what war was really like. We always heard about war as a battle that always ended with a heroic victory, but that was not what it was really like. I can't imagine the pain if my friends, which would become more like family during war, had died. Watching people die, especially friends, right in front of me, would be something I could not recover from, and I feel like I would have visions of it for the rest of my life. The book made me think about my brother's cultural heritage project. It was about an ancestor of ours who was responsible for taking care of Mary Surratt, the only female conspirator in the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. He showed kindness towards her, and he was criticized for being too nice. This made me think about how that relates to the war, and how Paul showed kindness to the Russian prisoners that he did not even know. He gave them cigarettes because he knew they were in bad conditions. This brought a feeling of peace between Paul and the prisoners. I sometimes wonder if I would have had the courage to do something kind like Paul did, even during those very hard times. My view on the war as described in the book changed as the book progressed. I never thought of how hard it actually would have been to go to war. As I got deeper into the book, I also dug deeper into my imagination. What would it be like for you if you left behind your family as a 19-year-old and go off into a place where you had to kill people, all because you were told to and because it was for your country? I never knew the horrors of war until I truly felt like I was there. All Quiet on the Western Front brought me into the world of war. I never knew what it was actually like to be there, out on the battlefield fighting for your country during World War I. In Chapter 6 of All Quiet on the Western Front, it connected me to the characters and their struggles. Towards the end of the chapter, I experienced some of the most descriptive, yet disgusting writing I've ever read. The injuries that these soldiers had were described horribly well. Chapter 6 taught me about camaraderie. The soldiers that went to war always had each other's backs. They were even risking their own lives to save other soldiers. At home, these men may have been strangers to each other, but on the battlefield they were like brothers, always willing to do what they can to save others. We explained the difference between fuse length of the enemy bombs and our own. We put them wise to the sound of gas shells, show them all the tricks that can save them from death. Going into this project, I had no idea what it was remotely like to be at war, fighting for your country with people you don't even know. Chapter 6 summed up for me the good and the bad of war. Although there really is no good side to war, I learned about the comradeship between the soldiers and the horrors of war. War separates many people, but also brings them together as brothers. In All Quiet on the Western Front, the main character, a German soldier in World War I, Paul Baumer, and his comrades become emotionally closer in every battle. If a soldier is wounded, his comrades are always there to support him. They are unwilling to leave their comrades behind, for the war has brought them together. Paul and Albert are wounded in a shelling during Chapter 8, and they have to get to safety. Quote, "The next moment a blow sweeps like a whip over my left leg. I hear Albert cry out. He's beside me. Paul is sent to surgery, and Albert is taken care of in the dressing station. They bribe a sergeant major with cigars to be sent to a hospital together. They go to the hospital with the better nurses, but Albert gets a fever. In the fear of being separated from his comrade, Paul pretends to have a fever, and they are sent to a different hospital together. I took away a lot from the book, especially to be thankful for what I have. I'm glad to have a family and friends, and all sorts of opportunities in life. I'm thankful that I'm not forced to go through what the soldiers did. Their freedoms in life were taken away as they went to battle. They lost their families, friends, hobbies, and their old lives. The topic of camaraderie and friendship had a big effect on me while reading the book. The soldiers had already gone through a lot, being separated from their families in past lives. That is why I felt it was important for them to stick together as brothers in a big family. That's something I can apply to my life, keeping people I love close to me, because they are very important in my life. Similar to how all the soldiers were important to each other in each other's lives. I also took away a lot from another theme in the book, the horrors of war. I cannot imagine what it would be like to be randomly picked to go into a brutal war, in which I know I'm going to go through a lot of pain. The author, Erich Maria Remarque, clearly conveyed the truth behind war. There's no heroism in war like what happens in the war movies and books. The truth behind war is that it's terrifying, and even if you do survive, there are likely to be long-lasting emotional and physical challenges. I take out my cigarettes, break each one in half, and give them to the Russians. They bow to me and then light the cigarettes. Now red points glow on every face. They comfort me. It looks as though there were little windows in a dark village cottage, saying that behind them are rooms full of peace. Camaraderie and brotherhood are two major themes in the book and also in life. All Quiet on the Western Front conveys a message of togetherness and importance of kindness and friendship. Paul did not even know the Russian prisoners, but he was kind to them and they were friendly in return. One of my biggest takeaways from this book was being kind like Paul was to these soldiers, and that when we are going through tough times like the war, it's important that we have friends that are there for us. Kindness is always important. It isn't that we just need it during hard times. We need kindness all the time. We need things like Paul did for the prisoners, or what my relative did for Mary Surratt, even though she participated in the assassination of Lincoln. What I want to be taken away from this video is that we should value all people, and every person should have a sense of camaraderie for others. That's how we get through hard times, like Paul Baumer did in All Quiet on the Western Front.